Is there a way you can walk me through Dana's reaction when he learned that this ruling had come down? What was his thoughts that he gave to you, and what was his immediate kind of response?
So I just talked to him not that long ago. He's excited. He's euphoric. He's excited to be home. He's excited to get out. We always knew this was going to happen. There was no doubt in our minds whatsoever, the second this trial was over, that it was coming back. We knew that this trial was so infected with error. You can't have a trial where you're calling somebody a big black man the entire trial. We were not allowed to present evidence that the accuser was a sex worker, that we had proof she did self-interviewed with the police and admitted to being a sex worker and charging the same amount of money to other men than what Dana paid her. And also, the judge in this case allowed the matter to be infected with racial bias and prejudice from the defense from the first second we started this trial. And at the end of the day, this verdict cannot stand.
At what point did the, I guess, appeals process come down? Was it immediately after the trial, or did you guys take time to do this? So, can you walk me through a timeline of all this, how this all went?
Sure. The trial lasted over 9 months long. It was a very long trial, and it happened in the middle of COVID, and they actually had to take a break during the trial. So this poor jury was required to be there for 8 to 9 months on this case. And then they put Dana in a plastic box where he had to sit behind us with a face mask on him during the remaining part of the trial after COVID. So after that trial ended, which was about 3 years ago, the appellate process started, and the appellate process is long and slow. But in this case in particular, there were more issues than you ever see in a normal case. Normally, there's like 1 or 2 issues that may come up in a trial. We had over 16 significant issues where they withheld evidence, and the law enforcement, when we provided them that information, they were required to go interview her, and she confessed to being a sex worker after she had falsely said during the proceedings that she was not a sex worker.
And the judge in the case, even though she testified and committed perjury, the judge allowed it to stand and would not allow me to reopen and cross-examine her on the credibility after she gave the police report. This judge was biased from the second we started this case.
So after that, so it took 3 months. 3 years for the appeal process to be done. It just came down on December 26th, the day after Christmas, which we found poetic because Dana wasn't allowed to be with his family for the last 3 years. He has children. He's a family man, and he's coming home now. And we knew it was going to happen. We knew it was going to take a while. We had to go through this process, but it's a overwhelming victory. He is not even convicted of a parking ticket right now. He's going to be home, and this matter is going to come to a conclusion in only one way, which is Dana Stubblefield's innocent of all these charges.
He now has a hearing, correct, this week, based on whether he can go home or not. Can you explain to me the process now?
Sure, we're filing a motion to have him released from custody, and we expect to get that on file today or tomorrow. Then it's a process. The process will be, we'll have to get a hearing in court, a court date, and then we'll have to have a court accept the idea that the appellate court's already spoken. There are no criminal charges. It has all been vacated. So generally on this type of issue, you have to show that you'll likely prevail in order to get bail or released. Well, it doesn't have to show he's likely to prevail. He already did prevail. So we're ready to go, and we're ready for him to get out. Right now, technically, process matters. We have to file the motion. It's got to be served. They have to give notice to the prison and to the district attorney's office, and we're getting all that done today.
So is there a rough timeline of when you expect this hearing to be? Is it a couple days, a couple weeks, or?
Couple days.
We want it soon. If we could, I'd want it tomorrow. But it takes time, and there's notice that has to be given, transportation notice for Dana to be brought to court. But if it were up to me, I'd do it in an hour.
Is there a plan for Dana when he gets out? He has not obviously seen, I guess, all these people from outside of a prison for a long time. Is there what are Dana's next steps? I suppose, does he have a wish list or a want list that he wants now that he's set to be a free man?
He's going to be with his family. I mean, that's if there's one thing that Dana misses the most, it's being with his family. And right now, he's looking at one day ahead of where he's been. That is, he needs to be released. He needs to spend time with his family. We don't expect there to be a retrial, not just because of the overwhelming voice of the appellate court saying that he's not convicted of these charges, but we got to remember that in the last trial, we won the majority of the most difficult counts. He was found not guilty of those counts. It was these particular counts where they didn't let in the evidence that showed that she was a sex worker, which would have explained how this occurred. That's all that wasn't before the court at that point. That was the most significant parts that we weren't allowed to address last time. We don't think they're going to retry it. We're not even sure if they're allowed to retry it under this ruling. This ruling, we believe double jeopardy is attached, and he should not have to face anything in the future because he's innocent, and this court said so. And the error that occurred was on the side of the government. It was the prosecutor who made the error. It was, but for what they did and the judge's ruling, and it's very important to emphasize that the prosecutor's an advocate like we are. The judge is supposed to be the neutral guy in the middle. He wasn't.
No, he was neither fair nor impartial. And the infection of this case, the continually calling him a big black man, the idea that it's a paid sex worker who admitted to the police, but we're going to hide that from the jury. Then she's allowed to testify and commit perjury at will. This was one of the most unfair trials. This isn't even something you'd see and say on TV, oh, that makes sense. And this happened in the real world. This happened in a real courtroom. And Dana has been unfairly incarcerated for years because of all of these issues and the infection of this trial and a biased judge. The process is supposed to have a fair and unbiased judge. We had neither. To allow this evidence in, to allow him to be continually called a big black man, to hide critical evidence from the jury, yeah, that this was getting overturned. We knew that from day one.
And you said you spoke with Dana just recently. I'm very curious to hear more of his reaction. I mean, obviously he's happy. What else can you tell me about his mindset right now?
His mindset is he wants to be home with his family. His mindset is, to some degree, this is surreal. He's waited years for this. The way that he gets information is different. He can't just tune in and watch TMZ. So he hears things in pieces, and he needs to figure out in his own head what is right and what is wrong. But the most important thing for him, as Alan said earlier, he wants to be home with his family. He'll take next steps. He absolutely will. Once out, he will tell his story, and he will tell about the injustice. And it's not something just coming from defense mouthpieces. This came unanimously from the Court of Appeals. The Chief Justice of that court signed off on the opinion. She was the lead sign off. It's not close. This isn't something that has a hint of, well, maybe it's not true. It was extraordinarily strong. It was extraordinarily forceful, and it sent a message. You can't call somebody a big black man throughout a trial.
And, there were 16 issues. The first issue was the one that they overturned. They didn't even get to the other issues because they didn't need to. They by no means said they were not valid. They just didn't need to go there because this overturns the entire conviction. And you got to remember, there were 3 judges that heard this appeal, 3. And like Mr. Rosenfeld said, it was the Chief Justice that wrote the opinion, but there were 2 other justices that unanimously agreed with the decision. This is one of the most significant racial justice decisions in the history of California.
It's also a good decision for justice in general. Even though this has been codified to the Racial Justice Act, the concept of having a fair and impartial trial and a fair and impartial judge has been around since the 1700s, and Dana had neither. And we screamed about it from the first second this trial happened into the last gavel that was hit. But guess what? There's a new process coming, and this is what happens when real justice happens. These 3 justices who heard this case overwhelmingly on the first issue, they didn't need to go 2 through 13. They ended it on number 1. So it's sort of like a baseball game where the home team's ahead in the 9th inning. They don't bat the bottom of the 9th. There's no need to. So that's what happened here. But at no time have any of our other issues been considered frivolous or not valid. We have it, and we want to be in court. If I could, I'd be in court in an hour with Dana.